is my first, and we'll be talking about how to create a great academic poster. So this is like the introduction to all of that 101. So Victory will start the first part of today's training session properly. Victory, you can go ahead now.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Could you let me know if you can hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you. We can
Oh,
hear
okay,
you.
okay. Nice. So, good evening, everyone. So, as Rachel mentioned, today we'll be talking about how to create a great academic poster. So, I will take the earlier part while Rachel will take the most of like the designing part, how to like make the designs yourself. So it's more like a mini workshop, but like we'll start with the introduction and Rachel will take over the rest. So, the just to give a bit of background. So, because I mean, we are science people, we are science folks here. So, what happens is like oftentimes there are two major ways where how you can present your work, right? To either like the technical audience or like a general audience. And it would often come in form of you have to do an oral talk or you have to do a poster presentation. So I feel like, in my own opinion, I mean, this could differ from each person, but I feel like, in my own opinion, like I feel like the oral talk is a little bit more formal, because like you're just talking to people, you don't get feedback from them, and the only time they get to talk to you is just like ask you questions, which sometimes you might know, sometimes you don't know. So I feel like the poster presentation gives you better chance to like have like a one-on-one interaction with people. You get to like pick on people's brain, they pick on yours. You might even like meet people you want to collaborate with from there. So I feel like the poster presentation is more it's more personal. It's a more personal form of sharing your research, sharing your ideas with people. And that's why it's very important. And from time to time, we as scientists would often have to do this. Either you are in academia, either you're doing a research in industry, there'll be times where you have to like go talk to people. And because of the science we do, even if you're doing like something very cool, if you can like communicate it and showcase to people, then that's a problem. So that leads to the question of what's it's an academic poster. So I'll start from what it is not, and I'll go to what it is. So basically, it's not a mean, because I feel like there's a thing where sometimes you've done a lot of cool work and you get a chance to present, and the instinct is just dump everything you have, like dump all your data, like just show off your nerds to like the people. But that's not the point of an academic poster. The point is just primarily just present what you have, like summarize your findings, and it's also an avenue to teach people, so that you could have a poster where you have a general audience of people that have never even heard about your work or like your field and everything. So it's also a means for you to like share with people, right? Share what you know, share what you're finding, and sort of get people interested about what you're doing primarily. So that's what it's about. It's just a medium to like summarize all your work for people in a way that would make sense to them, and in a way like you can get feedback from them and they can also learn about what you're doing. So we're moving on to what makes a great scientific poster. So like I said earlier, the point is not to just dump all your data and just dump everything you have on people. You want to you want to give people space, right? You want to give people space to like see what you're doing. And before we go about to the image, there's something I think I heard from a podcast was talking about like how Steve Jobs, I mean, we all know Steve Jobs, how like he had the idea to like just keep things simple. So I feel like we can also like translate the same idea to our research, in how that when you're trying to do things, you try as much as possible in your power to like keep things simple and not like overcomplicate things. And over part of overcomplicating things might be you just trying to like dump all your data on people instead of just making a flow in which everything you're doing, everything you've done, everything you want to do is so simple. Not like you have to water it down, but like in a way that it's easy for them to like understand. So I got this image online. It's from 4ways, and it just gives a bunch of do's and don'ts. The information is you want to make your poster in the way you design it, you want to make it in a way that it's readable, it's short, it's precise, you use the right graphics, the right color, the right things. And what I want to think about is when you're making a poster primarily, you're basically thinking what is like the most important thing and the most fascinating thing about what I'm doing, and what is the most fascinating thing I've found about what I'm doing. And that is always the points you would want people to leave your post, or like they should leave your stand with, because there's a chance where you have a lot of things and people would just say things and they will ignore it and nothing will stick to them, and then they could talk to you for like 5 minutes and they could leave. Like, let's say if you ask them tomorrow, hey, what did that person talk about, they probably won't remember, because like they just got a lot of information, like their eyes on them to like stay on one thing. So you want to keep it as fascinating and as short as possible, and you want them to be able to leave with at least one point of hope. This is what this person does and this is what is interesting about their work. And when you have this question in mind, it's going to help you in you having to design your work from scratch. So, because like, like the main focal points, so that will help you guide people towards the idea you're trying to push to them. So, this is a general overview. So there are two ways you could design a poster, which Rachel would also walk us through later. You could have them in either the portrait format, or you could have them in a landscape format. So the example here is a landscape format. And in most instances, you have the title, you have the collaborators working on the project, you have a small abstract, you have an introduction, you have the materials and method. Just the same way you typically do your project, you have like the different sections. But what you want to do is you want to have a good mix of both the text and the figures, and you want to get a good flow of your story. So you don't want to put a major idea of how people typically do this is you want people to like go from left to right. So you don't want to start your abstract and introduction, and you don't want to put like discussion, like reference in the middle. Then don't want to like go put your result or like the materials and method in a hand. And then some people would have to go from right to left and go back from left to right and go back from right to left. So you just want to give people like the means to like flow through your work with you, just moving their eyes from right to left. They can have an idea of what it's about. Then going on, so there are also some design guidelines. So this is very subjective, depends on what you're doing and who you're doing with and the place you're trying to present. So if you're presenting at a conference or it's just like a small in-house thing, some of these guidelines are not exactly like cast in stone. So they are subjective based on what you're trying to do. And so you want to have a target for like your word count. So if you have a very long research, like a very long research topic, so let's say you're trying to design a poster now for a general audience, fine, you could write your research topic exactly, but that might not exactly get people like pumped to even come to you about your research. Because the first thing they will see from our files, they'll probably see your topic, because like that's gonna be like the bold one. They will see your topic, they will see the pictures on it. So if they see like your topic and it's just like very long and sciencey, and you're probably trying to present to a general audience, me personally, I wouldn't go close, because I'll just be like, yeah, that's too complex for me. But if you put the topic in a way that it's sort of simple for people, not exactly like I mentioned, that you don't have to water it down, but like you just want to make it a little bit catchy for people to like, oh, like what's this person like doing? What are they interested in? So they can always come to your poster. I don't also want to keep it too long. So that's why the word count for the title is typically between 8 to 15. And typically you don't need pictures. You have like different font sizes you could use. And oftentimes the title font will always be the biggest, just because that's like it's bold and like people would be able to see it from afar. And also, so general rule of thumbs from what I've seen is most times you want to stick to like a couple fonts. You don't want to use a lot of fonts. So you probably want to stick between 1 to 2 or 3. That's max of 3. And there are different fonts you want to use where it might be cool, like visual, like it looks nice and cool, but that would just make reading your work more complex. So you want to use like fonts that will be easy for people to read. And when they come to it, they don't have to like strain your eyes to like see, hey, what exactly did you write here? Maybe like your J, you're writing like high, but like the high looks like J based on the design of the font you're trying to use. So you want to keep that as simple as much as you can. And then you have the authors, you have the word count. You don't want to keep that much too. You have the fonts you should use. Then you have your abstracts. The abstracts, typically you want to keep it short as much as you can. Just the basic format for abstract okay, this is the background of what we're trying to do. This is how we wanted to do it. This is what we did. This is what we'll find out. Just keep it short as much as possible. And typically the same thing will go through the fonts, the same thing with the font size and the font styles. You don't want to mix a bunch of fonts in within the same text. And same thing goes for the introduction, the materials and method. And you always have the, because you're trying to present an idea to people, right? You just don't want to use all words. So you also want to use tables or figures that people would see, and that would sort of like summarize your work. So let's say you have a bunch of data now. Instead of doing like different graphs, if you could get a sum of those graphs and represent that on a very bigger graph, so that when people see the graph, they can see like the breakdown instead of you having to like have like multiple graphs. That might be so that might not be best for like if you have to like submit your paper, like your project work, or if you have to like submit like the paper format or the script for your work. But since you're trying to like catch people and these people would be moving around, they'll just be like trying to see what will catch their eyes. So you want to keep your images as pleasing as possible. And as well, you want to keep them detailed such that you don't have to use a lot of them. You just have to use the right ones that would convey the exact ideas you need. And same thing goes with the methods and the materials. You have the results. You're also allowed to use images. So for the introduction, so again, this just like the guidelines earlier, this is not exactly cast in stone. It's also subjective, depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to communicate. But this is just like a general rule of thumb, like something you can work with. So you have 100, 200 words, same thing with 1 to 2 figures, 1 to 2 tables, and just basically same thing. So again, this is I got this from the Ohio State University Press book. So this is like their own formats that they would typically advise people on. So it depends on what you're doing. Also, this might differ a little bit. And on to the next slide. So here we'll take a break. So I would like us to indicate on the chart. Rachel, if you can, please, could you help me look at the chart? So now this is an example of a poster. So just off the top of our head, and based on what we are seeing here, what can we say is good about this poster? And what can we say it's not so good? So I'd like us to put in the chat box. And if you also want to talk, you can also unmute yourself and also say a few things too. That would be appreciated. So I think Rachel will be looking out in the chat box for us.
Okay. Yes. So wealth said heavy. Same thing that word count is too much. So I think both of them are referring to the fact that the text is too heavy and it's not readable. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So wealth and Okoyemi says that the text is too heavy and word count is too much. Who is going next? Maybe we should nominate people.
Yeah, do you want to call names?
Okay. Shemilogo says it's not visually appealing. Okay.
Okay.
Why would you not join synthesis? We should discuss that later. Okay. It's not
So I think
okay.
we have
What
like
else?
about 20 people on this chat. So please drop your
Yeah, okay.
comments.
Samuel Awoni says the good thing is that it goes from left to right. Ah, okay. Samuel says that it goes from left to right.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I should start calling names. Esther
Maybe
Depoju.
just two names.
Oh, okay. Let me target somebody that knows. I know somebody. Lolade, you know I'm going to call your name, so it's best use. Obed. Obed says that the abstract and introduction is too wordy. So then Habib says the color choice is not appealing, and the number of images is too low. The size is too small, and the topic is let's see, within the font size is too small and it's too wordy.
Okay. Nice. So thank you everyone for your suggestions. So this was actually an image that was found online, and they were also trying to critique the image, and this was their final submission of it. So just like most of the people said, there were too much words there, and the abstract was too wordy, the introduction was too wordy, and their choice of like font size too was too small. because you want to design your poster in a way that if people are far from you and not exactly close to you, they should be able to see at least a few things here. Even like me trying to read from the laptop, like in front of me, I can't see most of the things here. So that just gives an idea about how like it's too much. There's a lot of words. Because again, people are not here to like read your paper. They also want something that would catch them, something you could explain to them and just like summarize your work. So they are not here to like read your book or like whatever you have. So you want to keep the words as little as you can. So they say here, so I think so. So this critic here is also subjective because they also mentioned, I think for some reason they didn't like the fact that the whoever had the poster added the image of like the institution. So they also like canceled that, like we don't want that. So then again, there was the whole the background was black and white, and just because the words were too much, it made it all look gray and everything's like dissolving in the background. And here they said too small and too much. So what I feel like they're trying to talk about is how you don't have, I think someone mentioned about the images in the chat, but then like there's about like the legend is like too much, but like the images, you could probably have maybe used more images and used less word and just like summarize what the legend is about instead of writing like a whole lot of details in the figure. And here they also mentioned, I mean, I think this person is probably picky because they also mentioned how the caption is not like aligned with the figure. So that might be a problem for some people. In one of the things I was seeing online, they were saying how the the picture quality of the actual when it's printed, like the picture quality of the actual images for like let's say this graph right here, not the graph, the what's it called now? Help me out. This one right here, the one that shows that the cramp is above, it's not so it's not so visible even like when you click because like then you're unable to like distinguish the differences between the two of them. And they said here is too cram, here is too cram. So just this is just an idea of like a bad example of how you don't want your poster to look like. So I'm sure like when Rachel is going to show us when Rachel will be showing us the other examples later, she'll probably show us some good examples of what the poster should look like. So now just so let's say you've designed your poster, you have everything planned out already, you have good graphics, you got good images, you have everything, the background is cool, the fonts are cool, it's visible, everything is fine. So now for you to actually communicate your research now, so what do you have to do? So it depends on where you're presenting, you could have like a general audience, you could have a technical audience. So what you want to do is you want to have a script. So the script is not in context of you're just talking to people like a robot, like you have this thing crammed in your head, because like that makes it very obvious to people, right? So you don't want to like you don't want to give that vibe of like this person just crammed and came to just pour out. Because like you have to repeat the same thing. But a script in context of you sort of have a flow in your head of how you would go from each of the sections. And even when you're going from each of the sections, you also have like specific images. So let's say you have like 3 images, but maybe one of them would communicate the points just fine. So you could also just stick to that one. So you have a script of how you would communicate to a general audience. That means you wouldn't have to use the technical jargons that it's probably like your specialty. And you also want to have a different script for a technical audience. So let's say you're presenting in a graduate school conference where like it's a very small niche group of people that will be there. Of course, like you don't want to water your research down a lot. So in that instance, you'd want to have a script for like that sort of audience where like if you say certain things, they wouldn't ask you what it means because like that's what they do. So you want to have a script for general audience, you want to have a script for the technical audience, and you also want to have a longer or a detailed version of your script. So I feel like it's the thing where you could have people come up and they just, or you can ask them, oh, do you want a shorter version or do you want a longer version? If they are very interested in your work, even if it's a general audience, they could ask you for a longer version. So you want to have the long form of your script and you also have one like, you want to have the short form of your script. And also, it's best to always think of it as a conversation you're trying to have with someone. So you can just see the person as, oh, just randomly see this person. Let's say like you meet this person in the bar and you guys are just having a chat, like, hey, like what do you do? This is what I do. So you want to see it as a conversation. And which is one of the ways I feel like I would typically prefer like a poster over like an orator, because now like you're having talk with someone, right? But if it's just like you're giving an oral talk, it's just like you're just shouting to a bunch of audience who might and might not be interested, and they're just waiting for you to finish and just like ask you questions. So another thing about thinking about as a conversation is also where you can also ask them, hey, like, what do you do? Like, are you here just like sightseeing, or like, are you doing the similar research? Like, what do you do? Because in having this conversation, you could also like find a common ground with people. So that also gives you an idea of like what they're about. And that might also give you an idea of how you want to sell your work to them. So let's say if they get interested in your work and they probably want to collaborate, you also want to know what they do. So that way you can tie your story into their story. And that would probably make them more interested in your work. And so the last one is more on the design side, where so there's a way you could get your images when you're picking your images for your design. You want to use, there's something called like I think it's scalable vector graphics, the XVG. So you want to use those ones because most times when you have to get these images and then you have to print them, it's the images could get when you print them, you don't get the most quality out of it. Let's say you're using like a watered down version of the picture. But if you can get the vector images, those will typically stay the same. Like depending on if you're resizing it or whatever you're doing to, like the quality would always remain the same. And then another tip is you would also want to anticipate the kind of questions they could probably ask. Of course, like this is your work, you've done the whole work, you've done everything. But you also want to like anticipate what kind of questions they want to ask because so like the thing is like you can't answer all the questions, right? Like there's a chance you don't know everything, but at least the ones you should know, you want to like anticipate them ahead so you can have like prepared answer. So when you have prepared answer, it also helps them like not to like catch you off guard and like you're mumbling. And it's not as if you don't know what you're trying to say, just like you don't have it like all like rehearsed and like all like affecting your head. And another thing I didn't add here was so most times when you're done with your design, right? As much as possible, we want to read it, we want to go through it a bunch of times. And you also want to like give it to a colleague or like a friend to also like go through for you. Because there are times where you could make a mistake, but just because you're the one who did it, when you're reading it and reading it again, like you don't catch those errors just because like there's a way your brain has just like gotten used to the flow of words and just it doesn't pick out on those simple things. So when you also like get your poster done before like you give it out, before like you go print it out and go to your conference or like wherever you're presenting, you also want to get people to also help you look at it. That way they can point out whatever thing you didn't catch in your own. And lastly, you also want to time yourself, right? You don't want to, if you're doing the short version, you don't want to go beyond the certain limits. If you're doing the longer version, you also don't want to go beyond certain limits where even though they asked you for the longer version, at that point, they're just becoming bored. And the last part I will take on and would have a quick short activity after this before Rachel comes on, it's more of the common starters. So let's say perhaps someone is walking by and they could just look at you and be like, hey, just tell me about your research. So you want to have like an idea of a script of how you would start this. Or they could ask you, hey, like, how does this relate to XYZ? Or they could be like, hey, what's like, why is your work important? Or they could ask you, what's the next? Let's say you get this social result, like, what do you plan on doing next? Or maybe they could be passing by, they could see a figure. And that is why most times it's the visual appeal that would always bring people. They could be passing by and just say like maybe you made a graph or like you made an image and just be like, hey, like what's this image about? Or how does this method work? So oftentimes those are like common starter grounds you would typically encounter with people where they would just come talk to you about your work. So one last activity we have in the chat box. So I know a few of us, I mean most of us we've done some form of research in the past. So I would like if someone could also volunteer, you could volunteer to also unmute yourself, but we would like someone to just, based off what you've learned here, so now you don't have to design the poster, but let's say you're meeting someone in the general audience and the person just comes to your poster and be like, hey, like I want to invest in this, your idea. Just summarize this, your work. So the person didn't go through your poster, right? The person just like summarize this, your work for me in like a very short time. And then like I'm willing to like put in money. So I would like someone or a few people in the chat box, or you could also unmute the mic. Just tell us about like what you've done before and how you could summarize that in a very brief form. And that would be the thing that the investor, whoever it is, would sort of take away. Because remember what we started from is you know what you've done, right? You know what you've done, you know where you've been, you know the experiment and everything you've done. But you want everybody coming to your poster to leave with at least one thing that will remember about you and about your work. So how would you communicate the idea? So can we get people in the chat box, please? Chat box, or you could unmute yourself. So it doesn't have to be fancy, just something short and simple. We just want to practice it. Hello.
Victory, do you think we need to call names, maybe nominate people, or have people nominate themselves? Or maybe they are still typing.
I mean, maybe we could.
Maybe I should let you pick somebody at random because it feels like I target people a lot.
I'll pick on our boss. Wealth. If you can unmute, please. Or you can also type in the chat box if you can't.
Okay. Okay, so this is how I would talk about my work. That's the question, right?
Yes. Just how you'd summarize your work to a general audience in a very brief format, in a way that would make sense to them.
Okay, so I think so let me just say it the way, typical way I would try to say it. So my research is aimed at understanding the immune system of infants. So specifically, I'm looking at infants who are born to women living with HIV, and um, these infants, although they are not infected by HIV, they are affected by the virus, and the virus disrupts their immune system and affects how they respond to diseases and vaccine responses. So basically, I'm trying to understand how they respond to vaccines, and findings from my project can inform the future development of could inform the future design of therapies and vaccines for this class of infants that vaccines or therapies that are adapted to their weak immune systems and can kind of strengthen the kind of responses that they generate to um, pathogens or vaccines. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much, Rod. So now, what said is trying to understand and study like the immune system of little children, right? So now, if I'm to leave World's poster, two things will stick to my mind. He's trying to understand the immune system, one, and he's doing that with little children. Now, if Walt is going to design a poster, he would have that at back of mind, like that's the two main ideas he wants to communicate. Fine, I'm working with little children, I'm trying to understand their immune system, and that would help them, how that would help us understand them now, and also like the long-term application. So let's say we're trying to design vaccine, we would have to like factor that in. So I just did that to just like give us an idea of how we can also just put our research in a very short, brief format that anybody living the poster, now I would always remember, okay, this is what Well does, because now like it just made it simple for me in just, I work with little children and I'm trying to understand their immune system. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I would, well, Talimat is tackling you. I would hand over to Rachel now to go ahead with the second part. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Victory. Very interesting. I kind of agree with what Alima said. Immune system is still a lot of jargon for general audience. I agree. There are still some things you'd explain and explain tire. So sincere apologies. Um I don't know if Halima has given me a Iwo drama with network stuff because I'm trying to deal with my network right now. So I would need to ask for a couple of minutes. But in the interim, while I'm setting up for that, um, I want us to have a quick activity, and I want everybody to use the chat box. It's very, very important before we move on.
Richard, I think your network is breaking. Can hear you.
Now, if you could design your go-to color. You tell us your research interest and you tell us the colors you would want represented on the post. Sorry guys, I got kicked out. I'm back now. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm still trying to set up. But the quick activity is that I want everyone to go to the chat box, then I want you to type your research interest exactly and three colors that you would want represented on the what they call that thing again? On the poster. I'm sorry, I'm so distracted. All right, so let's go. I'm checking the chat box and I expect to see 32 responses. 31 excluding myself, or 30 excluding Victory. All right, so Shemilogo says viruses. She would want green, white, and red. Okay, that's interesting. Cyanobacteria, light green. Okay. Obed said photopolymer resins, green and blue. Okay, that's interesting. Who else? We have about 30 something people in this session. I'm expecting to see more, and all of those people are bioscientists. So body defenses, they're taking this body defenses thing very seriously. Well, red and blue, cancer biology, red and white. Oh, yeah, why red and white for cancer? Okay. All right. I find the color mix very interesting. All right, who is going next? Wow, we have 30 plus people in this session. We can't get just 6 responses though. You guys need to encourage me. I can't be fighting with the network. I'm fighting with the responses in the session. Okay, phages, green, white, and blue. Okay. Who is going next? Victory, bio art, or fancy colors. Yes, it's art, obviously. There has to be lots of fancy colors there. Antioxidants, red and white. Malaria, blue, black, and white. Okay, let's keep it coming. That malaria, blue, black, and white is an interesting mix. Makes me feel like malaria beats people blue, black, or something. All right, who's next? Vaccine research. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to set up. Just having network glitches. Vaccine research and development, white, blue, and green. Everybody likes white, blue, and green. All right, sincere apologies, guys. We're working on technicalities. I don't know why this is happening, by the way. Okay, pharmacokinetics, red and blue. Red and blue. Okay. Who is next? Some persons have not said anything. I think Dorothy, Emmanuel Ekwem, Faith Nwachukwu, Florence, Gloria, Habib, Ijoma, Israel. There's a number of people who are still waiting for. We're on the way, guys. We're on the way. Okay. This is really painful. I feel like Halimat has made a contract with the people of Iwo to make sure network gives us stress, but we're getting closer. Ulacom says bacteriophages, green and white, pharmacochemistry, white and blue. Drug design, wine and black. Wine. Oh, this is giving is it amoxicillin and piclox now. Marine natural products, blue, white, and green. Yeah, that fits marine. Wait. So at this point, please, I want to crave our indulgence to go on a 3 to 5 minute water break while I try to fix the network glitches, and I will start very shortly. Please. Thank you so much, guys. Just everybody should just hold on for 3 to 5 minutes. Finally, I'm so sorry. I'm back. Yeah. So I'm going to be sharing my screen shortly. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. Can you see my screen? Okay, it's still loading. Yeah. Can everybody see my screen? Hello?
Yes.
Yes. All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Sincere apologies. Alima, sincere apologies. I will not insult the good people of Iwo anymore. So I know time is running out, so I'll just quickly run through. Victor has said quite like a number of things that would really help us for today's session. So what I'm going to start with is, first of all, it's important to prep your poster. When I mean prep, what I mean is before you come to the design part, you should have a Word document that has all of details you use based on things he mentioned. For instance, and this is subjective depending on what sections you have. Some people have maybe 6 sections, 7 sections. So get all of your words ready. And the word counts in using a Word document might not really fit into a design. So you also have to consider that. So just check your word count and all of those other details. So it's best to just have it all prepped in a Word document so you're not just feeling afresh. So the first thing we're going to start with is that the size of your poster presentation isn't quite the regular size of a PowerPoint presentation. So what that means is that you would need to, okay, I hope everybody can see what I'm doing.
Yes.
I'm going to zoom in a little more so that, I think I zoomed in too much. So let's take that back. Mm. Okay. So the first thing to note is your dimensions. So you go to your, can everybody see what I'm doing? Hello?
Yes, we can see what you're doing.
All right. So you go to your slide size. So I got expert advice from Victory on the perfect slide size to use. So in your case, it depends on what size you've been told to present with. Now, there's the two formats, there's landscape and portrait, but this session, we're just going to do landscape alone. I don't think we'll have enough time to explore portraits, and landscape is somewhat more common. So you click the slide size rather, and then you pick the custom one. So here you can see that my width is 48 inches, the height is 36. Now, if you're going to pick portrait, all you have to do is swap it. Put 36 in the width, 48 in the height, and that just goes. So if I were to, so there's the slide orientation, landscape and portrait. If I were to click portrait, it will switch automatically on its own. But if I pick landscape, it just goes back. So I think we're good on that. This is already landscape. So that's the first part you need to know. Some dimensions might be slightly bigger, some smaller, but it's all around the same range. Then the next thing to do is to prepare the way it's going to look like. It's very important. How is your poster going to look like? So my advice would be to create sections. For instance, all you have to do, I'm going to cut this out so that you see how it was formed. So you go to the insert button, then you just insert a shape. I prefer to use rectangles. You can pick any shape that you want. Okay, so I'm going to insert a shape now. So when I insert this shape, it's just going to help me curate what I have in mind. If you remember Victory's presentation, the first picture he showed for general overview of a poster presentation, you can see that had about 8 sections, each box on top of each other. The essence of the boxes is I can name this blue box the one for the abstract. The one underneath introduction. The one next to it can be your materials and method. There might be an image you want to insert that refers to that underneath that. Then on the other side, I can simply put maybe the discussion or whatnot with that. So what I'm just trying to say is that you don't necessarily have to do this first on PowerPoint. You can start on paper. Just draw the boxes the way that would be enough for the sections you have one. And then in the arrangement, they have to follow the left to right order. So I can't put abstract here and put introduction here, put discussion next to it and put materials under. It might be a bit confusing for the readers. So you just have to make sure that it follows through the same line. So it's best to go left to right. Whatever you do, you can't make a mistake with that. That's the first point. Then the second point I want to raise is the arrangement of your design. Now you can see that these boxes, you can see this big box on the left. That's where I want to put the introduction. And I think this introduction has a couple of diagrams that would be important for the presentation. And the next box, the one that has the quiz on top, that one is for the material methods. There are a couple of graphs that will be underneath it, and the others are for conclusion, recommendation, acknowledgement. Now, the point I want to raise is that if you, how do I do this now? Good. Now, if I swap this box, the boxes, I swap the order. I'm going to swap the order of the boxes so that what I'm about to explain will make a lot more sense. And I put this big one at the end. There's nothing wrong with this way, actually. There's nothing wrong. But the problem is that because the bigger part is at the end, aesthetically, it might not be easy to identify it as the last part. It's the same rule as if you're wearing your clothes and you're putting the heavier color at the top and the lighter one at the bottom. Like maybe wearing a red shirt and a white trouser or white skirt. It can come off very sharp compared to white on red. That's the same way I want you to imagine what I'm saying. If you put the heavier section at the end, in terms of just the arrangement, because this one section houses one thing. That's what I'm explaining now. Like this small box houses one header, this another section, this another section, but this big one is just for one particular thing. If it's at the end, and this is a subjective thing, but if it's at the end, it can be a bit difficult with the eye movements. The eye might catch this one first than the others. Even as you're looking at the design right now, you might focus more on these bigger parts than the smaller sections. So that's also another thing you don't want to do. So as much as possible, it's important that when you are doing your sectioning, don't allow for the long lines at the end. It's best to start with the longer one. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying. If you understand, you can just put in chat box that you do. And if you don't, I'm willing to go over that particular point again. But aesthetically, this being the biggest section at the end might be confusing because people will tend to focus more on it, except this has a lot of images. If this doesn't have images and it's just words, it's easy for people to go towards the bigger section. And you don't really want that to happen. It might be awkward for what you're doing. Then, so there's that. So I'm just going to, obviously, the right order would be to switch it back to the way it's supposed to be. So that's another thing to note. So now let's say I have all of my sections done. Now, for instance, you have a lot of sections to work with. So maybe this is for your some don't put abstract on their posters, I've realized, but let's say this is your abstract, this is your introduction, maybe your methodology, your results, your discussion, maybe few points, recommendations, acknowledgements, and references. So essentially, this part is just to talk about, it's important to have an outline. And your outline should be based on what you are supposed to work on. So if you have a poster that has a lot of images, for instance, let's say your poster has a lot of images. The way this is, it wouldn't work. So I'm just going to delete this particular section so that I can make room for the images underneath. So the images are going to be in this white space. That's just an example. But if it's more words than images, which obviously, like Victory said, is not advice, it's best to always put some form of diagram or images so that the eyes stay with pictures better than words. So you also have to remember that as much as possible. So we're going to design one right now. I'm going to show you, okay, this is an example of one that I did. Sorry. Okay, I think it's better this way. Now, this is an example of one that I did, and I'm just going to do it from the scratch so that you see how it was done. Now, but I want us to vote. I'm going to show you three images, and you have to pick one that I'm supposed to do from scratch. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this is image number 1, the first poster. This is number 2. And this is number 3. So I just need us to pick one. The details are just random words, so that's not a problem. So you can either pick, and I'll just focus on the one that has the highest votes. So this is 1, this is 2, and this is 3. So I'm going to check comment section to know which to pick. Okay, who else is going with 2? All right, who else? 2. Why is everybody going with 2? Wow, 2 is so popular. Okay, I think we need a deciding vote. There are 3 2s and 2 3. Okay, I think two as one. It's fine, it's fine. We'll do 2. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is how I created 2. Now, interestingly, 2 has virtually the same kind of, okay. Sorry, I just need to check the sections better. Good. So first of all, I'm going to make the outline look like the way it is supposed to look like. I'm going to reduce this because the acknowledgement is not a lot. So I'm going to reduce the space for the acknowledgement. And this is for the discussion or recommendations, just another section. And this is for an image. So the one for the image, I'm going to delete this. So the spaces I'm leaving blank are the ones that are supposed to be for images. All the white spaces are for images. So I hope we understand that part, but I just need things to guide me. So what I did is that just to shrink this, because I want the headers to have something that pops. Now, you can't go wrong with a white background. I know that everybody says white background is clean, but you can't go wrong with a white background, especially if you are not very good with colors. Sometimes it's important not to do too much here. So you can't go wrong with white. You can't go wrong with off-white, or I won't say gray, but it's a very light form, light colors in their lightest forms. Like very light blue, very light green. You can't go wrong with light colors. So it's important that you, especially if you are not good with colors, don't overwhelm yourself with massive colors. Now, just like most design softwares, there's always a line that helps you to align whatever you are doing. So I've just made this the boxes for my headers. Then I'm going to do it for this guy too. and then this guy. So you can see the red line. Okay, everybody can see the lines that are guiding me. So I know that, okay, I'm not going out of bounds. So I'm just going to come here and copy the words so that I don't have to type again. All right. So I've moved the first couple of words. So now it's also important. Readability is important. Now, for what I'm designing, obviously, by the time, if it was a real poster, the words wouldn't be this. Even if another hack is, even if the words would not be, even if the words are lengthy, rather, you can choose a font that optimizes text size. That's another thing, but I think we'll come to that later. But on the other hand, now, let me just fill in the spaces and then we'll do that later. So I'm just going to copy the words because it's the same words I used for everything. Just copy it, paste, or just duplicate, whichever one you prefer. I think I should duplicate myself. So you can see the lines that are guiding me so that everything is aligned. Alignment is very important in design. So you don't want to have a lot of words that don't look good or that look like they don't belong where they are. Okay. Okay, I think I'm almost done with the words. Okay. So all of my text is justified, by the way. Like, okay. Let's see. Yeah, good. So now, I think we all know this part that when you're doing any form of presentation or even on your poster, people like to use whatever form of text alignment they prefer. I prefer to justify the text, like I prefer to justify text. That's my form. And I believe that it's the same for most persons as well. So I'm just going to take one header from here. I'm going to put the header, put it. Perfect. Okay. So now this part is done. And I have these images already. So I'll just copy the images, paste them as expected so that it looks just like what we've been seeing. Okay. So I got a couple of random graphs and things like that just to fill in this space. Am I too fast? I hope I'm not, because what I'm just doing right now is copying and pasting. Am I too fast? Okay, can somebody say something like, am I going too fast? Do I need to? No, we're good. Okay, we're good.
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to take the last image. Okay, I think this pretty much looks like this, except I'm not done with the headers. Now, important points to note. This particular poster was going to have a number of images. And when your poster is going to have a lot of images, it's important to determine position first. Like I said, it's important that when you're going to use intense things or a lot of images, follow the left to right rule. You can't go wrong. If you look at this, the first thing you pay attention to is probably the fish, then the colors, then you now notice the graphs, but the images will speak to you better. Now, the arrangement of the images is in such a way that the heavier image is at the beginning, and as you go towards the end, the intensity reduces. I don't advise that you put the most intense image at the end because it means people will focus on what is at the end. And if that's not what you want them to focus on, it's going to be a huge problem because their eyes will be like completely glued to it. First rule. Then the second rule with the images is that it's very important that your images are of similar colors or color themes. If I was to use an image that is black, no, black is a plain color. If I was going to, if this image was, let's say, purple, and all the graphs are green and orange, the poster is going to look awkward. It's going to look like an awful blend of color. So, especially if you're the one that is obviously designing your graph or whatever, work with a color scheme. There are a number of color palettes you can see online. Canva has an amazing one. PowerPoint also has. So it just guides you to know what type of colors you want to use. For instance, the activity we had earlier about the colors you'd want to associate with your research interest. Now, for persons that would want to use red, blue, and white, I would not advise the background of your poster being red. That might be awkward because blue does not stand out against red. Contrast is important. The reason why a lot of people went for this kind of poster is because you can see the details pop out. So, as much as possible, readability is something you should also prioritize, like Victory said earlier. So, if, for instance, people that have the red, blue, and white, if your background color is red, let me try to show you guys what that would probably look like. Okay, I'm going to pick Biosphere kind of red. Now, can everybody see my screen? Now, imagine if you want to go red, blue, and white. Let's say you want to pick this shade of blue. I don't know if it's blue or green, but let's say it's this shade of blue you want to go for. And as much as possible, you want to change your text to white. It's going to still look very awkward, actually. In fact, the whole red background might be a terrible turn off. Because if you're going to do something with red background, it means that there has to be a lighter color that would help the other form of design. Now, the other part is if you're going to use a red background, the way these graphs look with their white background is going to be awkward. So like Victory said, it's best to download your images as vectors. Vectors, SVG, they don't have background. That's the essence. So there's the option of, even if you have a graph that has, let's say, a white background, maybe it's something you pulled from under research or something. My advice is you could go on the internet, there's remove BG. So like I will drop all of this on the group later. So remove BG, just upload the image, it removes the background. So the image comes without a background, and which is going to be a lot more easier. So it blends to whatever background you put it on. That's one detail. Then the second detail is if you use a heavy color and let's say this kind of color, and you want to blend everything to your white, Abby? Yes, maybe you want to use white for the header, which is obviously not going to be a terrible thing. Then you decide that your text should be blue. I think that would just be really, really terrible to see. So that's also another thing to consider. Your color mix, your color flow is very, very important as well. Then another thing is, imagine if I was doing a poster on fish and the background is red. I'm putting this to everybody that imagine if even right now looking at this poster, I'm sure nobody wants to see it printed out, but imagine if, because obviously this poster is about fish. Now, imagine if the presentation is about fish, or let's say Lodad's on marine. Sorry, I've forgotten your research interest, but I think it's something about marine, and your background color is red. I want everybody to go to the chat box and score that particular poster over 10. Like the research topic is about marine or fish or water, and the background is this kind of, is it red or brown? So I want everybody to go to the chat box and then give the person a score over 10. So I'm waiting actually. Everybody has to do that. Oh my God. Well, that's very cruel. Oh, two. Why would you give person two in the first place? Two is too kind. I think I'll give. Oh, somebody wants to give person three. Oh wow, 9.95. No, Victory. That's. Do you mean minus 5? -3. Oh wow, we're really cool in the community. We need to change. Please change. Okay, so I'm just going to revert everything back. So I'm just going to focus on the other one. So it's very important that obviously your work colors blend well. One, like I said, you can't go wrong with white. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I realize that like typography, colors are also something that people study. And the best of us is not really like very good with colors sometimes. So white with whatever easy color follows, or just check up color palettes. But remember that it is a poster. And because you're going to prioritize reading over anything else, you have to make sure that you use colors that blend one, colors that are not too heavy two. That's another important part. I think that's the part on colors I want to focus on first. Then let's talk about fonts. I'm going to round up soon. But let's talk about font size and fonts. Now, it's very important to use readable fonts. And the fonts that read best on posters are usually sans. Sans read best, especially if you are going to deal with long words. It's best to go with sans. Sans is the ones, the any fonts that has rounded design. Like when they're writing the M, it looks more round, not as slim in quotes. Just think about fat fonts. Any font that seems fat is sans. There's serif. Serif is a lot more slimmer, but sans is really fatter. So just imagine all the fat fonts you know. That's easier. So you can go with your Arial, Helvetica. You can just use any sans font, but not Comic Sans. Comic Sans is for is not for serious stuff. So please avoid Comic Sans, like comic, like comics. Yes, just avoid Comic Sans. Avoid that. But you can use other sans fonts. They are very good for long text. They read very well. Most of your fonts on phones actually, even the font here for this design, transitions, animation, slideshow on your PowerPoint is mostly sans. They're sans fonts. So they read better with, long text or things like that. They are really gorgeous to see. And I have a particular bias for that kind of font. Well, please do not say anything. Thank you very much. That's another thing that you should um prioritize. Then another thing is uniformity of fonts. And fonts, yes, uniformity of fonts and font size. Please do not use, in fact, if possible, you can only use not more than 3 types of fonts. I would advise you even stick with one. Typography can be an interesting thing, and it's not very easy to know fonts that match each other. So using the same fonts, in fact, you can actually use the same fonts for your headers as your text. All you have to do for your headers is one, make them bigger, make them bold, and put them in caps. It looks fine that way. In case you are not sure which fonts to combine. And if you are, I won't advise you go more than 3, if possible. But the font of your text should all be the same. Like the text itself, you should have the same font and the same font size regardless. So one way you can do this is, let's say that this particular text box doesn't have enough words. Yeah. Let's say this part doesn't, oh, sorry. Let's say this part doesn't have enough words and I have to find a way. Obviously, I can't leave all of that space blank. Hey, let's say the introduction is not more than 3 lines like this. The best thing to do is, if it's one single image you want to use, just one, either make the image slightly bigger or add another image to it, or add another section. But don't make the font size here way bigger than the one for the results. It's going to be very awkward. You'll be putting attention on what you don't want to put attention on. In design, there's something called hierarchy, which means that the things you put in bold, the things that are in caps, are the things that you want people to notice first. So if I make the font here very big, conspicuously big, people are going to stay on the introduction and forget that there's anything called results or recommendation or discussion. So you don't want to do that as much as possible. So that's why it's important to have all of your text down. define the number of words you want to use. Obviously, in design, you're going to have to remove some details or add some other details, whatnot. Exactly. But whatever an image can communicate, I don't think there's a need to put words for it. So if like maybe this results, there's maybe the result originally is supposed to occupy like two parts. Putting three images still gets the job done. Max, they will ask you, like Victory said, okay, what does this mean? Then you explain to them. The image itself is supposed to explain what words cannot or what's words cannot do at that time. So that part is also very, very important. So what I just did with the header is that I just made it bigger. That's the only thing. And bolding and just put bold with it. That's all. Your own header might be in all caps if you prefer, depending. It can, but please do not italicize your headers. It will look very awkward. Please do not italicize it. Then the name, which I realized that the names and all the other details of the header is subject to obviously the institution or whatever rules is guiding that presentation at the time. Exactly. So another thing I would like to say, yeah, I think I'm all done. Okay. Another thing I would like to say is that it's important to have margins. Now, for design in general, beyond the poster, it's important not to put things too close to the edge, as opposed to things you might have seen. For instance, putting this image, you take the image to the very edge. It looks gorgeous if you look at it, it looks seamless. But certain times it's not healthy because maybe when you want to print it, something gets cut out. You don't want a situation whereby you're printing and this part is here, like this exactly. You can see where the words are. And then something happens and this part gets cut out. It's going to be really awkward. So it's important to leave some room, leave wiggling room in quotes, leave room at the edges personally. And the room does not have to be a big room or big space. And even in between your sections, that's how people know that you have moved from one to the other. So it's important to also leave room and space at the edges. That's another important thing. So the last thing I just want to say, because I know that yeah, I know that time is fast spent, and I'm sorry about my network issues. Last thing I want to say is that there might be situations whereby you really want to use color that is not a white background. The reason why I'm using this particular example is just to demonstrate that. Now, the background of this design is this light green. This light green header is the background. So what I did was to, sorry. Okay. What I did was to insert a shape, and the shape is just rectangle. So this is how the initial thing looks like. Everything is all green. But because I feel like there's not enough contrast, I put the white box. Now, you might decide that even though there's a white box, you want to make it look finer. So we're going to do something like each one is going to have its own individual white box, like each section. That's just this is an example. I'm just showing this image. Okay. So maybe I'm just going to uh obviously I'm supposed to bring it forward, but I'm just trying to demonstrate something. Then maybe I could do the same thing over and over. Like you will see the green in the middle. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate now. So please ignore the fact that you cannot see the words. I don't really need you to see the words per se. I just need to demonstrate what I mean. Yeah. Ha. Mm-mm. So now the essence of this is that some posters you will see, you'll be able to see green spaces at the background, and there's still the white box. Some of it might be seamless and whatnot. I'm just trying to demonstrate how that can be done. And you can still infuse the color you want without doing the white. So this could be, let's pick a different color. Can someone suggest a color for me? Uh, who wants to suggest a color? Let me go to chat box. Okay, color. Please suggest a color that I can put as the background. I'm going to use white boxes, but I just need a solid color, preferably. Maybe if you use a dark green. Ugh, I don't like solid colors. Ooh,
On to the
wow.
yellow and blue.
Yellow and blue. Wow.
All blue.
Well, okay, or blue. Okay. Because for yellow and blue is not impossible. But for that to work, it would require I want to pick a light shade of blue. So if I do yellow and blue, I can decide to make this box maybe another shade of yellow, or a shade of maybe another color. Let's see, maybe a darker blue or gray. Sorry guys, I'm getting distracted. This is amazing to me. Let me see. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's the yellow. Because I don't, it will not be healthy to change this to yellow, but I can still do that. So this wouldn't look good for a yellow blue combination, actually. I wouldn't advise that. Yellow is too much of a no, I want to use this particular yellow. This particular yellow is what I want. Please, Wells, don't ruin it for me. I must use this yellow. Okay, let's use this green. Okay. So there's just the obvious points that is just important to Owambe yellow. No, we're not doing Owambe yellow, please. It's just important to use nice colors in quotes. I think that's just the major point of everything. So like this yellow here, I can change it to green. White and green beats well, or use a lighter form of green, whatever color. But the point is just try not to use colors that would normally contrast with each other. And even if you have to, there are other ways to infuse the other color. Like for instance, if we were using how do I use it now? If we're using a light shade of blue with the background, even if you wanted to infuse yellow, only a darker form of yellow might help. A really dark form of yellow or a lighter form of yellow for the background, like light enough, like almost like off-white. And then to now use maybe blue as the headers would also be good. So I think that's another thing to consider. So this is just like introduction to just the idea of poster presentations. This is not exhaustive, obviously. Um, I would also advise that beyond using PowerPoint, you can consider using Canva. Canva also, I know I pitch Canva a lot, but Canva also has, it's also really easy to manipulate when it comes to posters. Try not to use the templates because templates are somewhat technical. For people that want to start using Canva for posters, I won't advise you to start with templates, Canva templates that is. I would advise you to start this way. Insert shapes and the words and all of that. It might be easier for you. And then Canva has better features where you might just enjoy the whole feel a lot more. But either ways, both of them are good. You can also custom the size. So either Canva or PowerPoint, I think there's another software you can actually use for posters, but I can't remember it right now. And they can all you can also have suggested color palettes and whatnot. So once you pick a color palette that you like, it guides you through the whole design process as well. And you can also like create your own graphs the same way you can do here on Canva and all of that. So I think our time is fast spent. So any questions for myself or Victory? We welcome questions now. I will be dropping links to videos on YouTube that can also help you step by step on how to create posters, whether portraits, whether landscape, really like good videos, are very informative, and also other resources that would help you as well. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for coming to this session. So you can drop your questions in the chat box if you have any, and we'll take them. Any questions? Okay, can we comment on posters that are entirely graphic? When you mean entirely graphic, I'm trying to understand what you mean. Well, no text. Oh, those are really, I particularly, okay, just title and mostly pictures. Okay, Victory, do you want to take the question or should I go ahead?
Hi, I think I could chip in before you go. I feel like for non-sciences, there could be the possibility, but then, yeah, for non-sciences, there could be the possibility, but depends on what you're trying to portray, though. But I think for sciences, I don't think there's a way you could do it where like you just have just pictures and like you don't really have words. Like you should have something at least. That's just what I think, though. Yeah, you could go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, I agree with that on one part, but recently I saw this engineering poster. Really interesting stuff. I don't know if there are words on that poster, it won't be up to 6 lines. The images were like visual storytelling is something that is still, amazing. But the images were really interesting. It was like a step by step. But then it depends on what the niche is, like what the research is about. For instance, think about infographics, maybe the ones that UNICEF does and all of that. Some of the infographics don't really have a lot of words. Some of them, they just have major images that they want people to follow through on. So I think that there's part of exploring that. But for you to have one with little or no text, first of all, in that is it something that is allowed in that space? One. Then two, you must really get your imagery right. Because for you to use only pictures and not many words, you must master the art of storytelling. Because it means you are not saying introduction, lengthy words. No, like every part, every picture is telling a story that follows through with each other. So my advice would be that it's not impossible. I like the idea. I particularly like seeing more images than words, but I just feel like if you are going to go that direction, make sure that you know how to tell stories with your pictures properly. Don't put the last picture in the first place or the first picture in the last place. Make sure that you have compelling pictures or images that can tell an amazing story. Once that is done, it's the same way we watch movies and whatnot. Once that is done, I don't think there's anything more to that. Maybe I would personally share that with you, Wealth, when I actually do find it. It was really nice, actually. Really nice. Wealth, are you good with that question? Can we move on? Okay. Maybe you're typing. All right, so Samuel Awoni says, is there any for references in a poster presentation? Victory.
Yes. If you are, so let's say you're adapting someone else's image, you would want to either reference or acknowledge them because that's like their thing. So like you don't want to just like use someone's image or like let's say there's a scheme you're using and it's not like you didn't create it. Like maybe you got it from a paper. You don't want to just like use that in your poster. Just imagine like the person coming around and like seeing the exact scheme and then like there's no reference to the fact that it's like you didn't do it, like it's not yours. So you want to either make reference or like acknowledge wherever like you get. I think it's mostly schemes most time, like pictures or like some information that is not entirely yours. So you want to like either acknowledge or like make reference to the person. So that way you're acknowledging like this is not your thing.
All right, thank you so much. I totally agree with that. Any other questions before we go? Okay, so I will drop the links on the group, and I would also encourage people that have experience with posters to also drop helpful tips for persons that might have to do them in the future. So I think when I drop the link, I would obviously it's open. Whatever tips you have that can help somebody else, please feel free to drop it in chat. But I'm sorry, on the group chat rather. Drop it on group chat so that somebody else can read it. Maybe something Victor and I didn't talk about and I think is really important. So that would be really, really great. So please, let's remember to fill the attendance form only for members. Non-members are exempted, so we do not need you to fill the form. But thank you for attending this session. So, in the absence, is it possible to join Biosphere? Okay, Samuel, we have application cycles, so you can just stay close to our social media platforms, our social media pages rather, and you'd see news when we're about to open another application cycle. You can apply, and then we'll see how that goes. Thank you. But for now, you're invited to join us whenever we have sessions and participate. Yes, thank you very much. All right, thank you very much, guys. We've taken a lot of time already. Sincere apologies again for that. Thank you so much, Victory, for sharing your wealth of knowledge. Yes, there's a wealth on this call. So on that note, I think I'll employ everybody to have an amazing weekend. Maybe not as amazing as mine, but still have an amazing weekend anyways. Victory, any other thing you want to say before we go?
Thank you everyone for joining and thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Good night. Please have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you.